guess I wanted to convey a spirit, first and foremost, and then talk about the work and the specifics and the ideas.
Okay. Great. So what is the spirit you want to convey? In the present tense, not the past tense, in the now.
Well, I have a meditation series called Dropping In. Dropping In has been very recurrent theme of my conversations. Not really a theme, but a practice or a disposition. And the spirit I want to convey is something more like jumping in or diving in. Because that's what I'm seeking to do with my work and life. And so I want to convey it whilst doing it. And if it works out, it will be inspiring to somebody else to do the same.
It's cool. So the jumping in or diving in, dropping in, it's very sort of spontaneous. It's not planned.
Mm-hmm.
The execution is kind of an afterthought. There's no goal. So what is the experience of jumping in? What is that? Why is that important to you?
Well, the kind of experiences that I have in conversation and in relationship with people can't be premeditated. And there's a lot of depth and texture that comes from not knowing where the conversation's going to go. And not knowing what I'm going to say. Because that orientation, that disposition in the moment actually becomes a disposition in life, just in the same way as your meditation practice. Being present, letting go of the relentless pathological cycles of thought and being with experience. That, the more you practice that, the more it begins to constitute your life. So, if I can not know what I'm going to say, there's a sense in which I don't know who I am or who I'm becoming. It's in not knowing the full extent of yourself and allowing yourself to be surprised by what comes. And I'm continually surprised by what's coming and what comes.
You said that in a way it's almost being present and not knowing as a practice. As you mentioned meditation. Do you find that the experience or the practice of this sort of dialectic diving into the unknown, into the present, is this a skill that can be acquired? Is this something that one can walk away feeling like they can drop into these states more readily or quicker through time and practice? Or is it not not like that.
I think it is a bit like that. I think it's a presence that you come into relationship with, and it's also a letting go. And the more times you practice that experience of letting go, in whatever context, be it a daily practice or in your life at large, in a psychedelic journey, it becomes easier to let go. The sense of a controlled grip on things becomes loosened over time. And then you can invite the unknown in closer, rather than being very contracted with, this is where my future is, and it's going to be this, this, and this, and this, and I have to do this to get to this. The future becomes less determined, and the more the future comes back to meet the present, the more the present can be suffused with mystery and the possibility of unexpected things happening. And that allows for more movement, and it allows for the emergence of capabilities and relationships that did not seem possible previously.
I feel like that almost offers a sense of content, calm, or peace, in a sense. Having no longer sort of feeling like you have to plan out. Sometimes we get ahead of ourselves really planning into the future. But when you bring the future closer to the present, like you said, it almost gives way to a type of peaceful agency over the now. At least that's what came to me when you said that. So what would it look like to do this work with you? You're offering one-on-one practice. What does that look like for somebody going in who's perhaps never participated in this type of dialogue?
I would say it's something like taking a walk together, conversationally. Taking a walk in the woods, or somewhere where the paths aren't so readily beaten. Becoming very present to the moment as it is unfolding. I've been known to create pseudo psychedelic experiences of presence from time to time, and I think that comes from being very present with myself, my own feelings, sensations in my body, what thoughts are being brought up in the moment. And so I suppose it's allowing neither of us to be the captain of the ship. Almost trusting the wind to carry the ship wherever it will go. And that will be totally unique to that conversation at that time, and the interaction of those two people, the interaction between me and that person, what what can arise will be unique. But I think the person who is in dialogue, who participates in dialogue in this way, will come away with a felt sense of that, which can carry through into the rest of their day and their life, and perhaps offer a distinct kind of conversation that they otherwise do not experience. And maybe that begins to flow out into how they show up in other places and other conversations, when it begins to feel like a conversation you've already had, a relationship that's always the same. To have that orientation of listening for the unknown, listening for the possibility of that. And that generally leads to a deepening.
It's beautiful. Sounds like a way of being. Almost provides a container to show up differently. Perhaps less about the content and more how two people enter into a conversation, perhaps that isn't necessarily about anything in particular, or less about the content and more about a way of being in conversation. What would you say to somebody who's perhaps totally novice, totally new to this, maybe a bit nervous? How can they just jump in? Do you believe in prompts? Do you believe in maybe asking a question? Do you meditate? What is a way to maybe sort of allow a person to drop in if they haven't done this before?
Yeah, I think some of that dropping in comes from the cadence of the conversation. The pace is affording of a gradual slowing down, which then can allow for a speeding up and more of a rhythm or excitement or flow to emerge later on. But the slowing down tends to be an essential part of dropping in. So we do a meditation at some point in the process, usually early on. And I have a lot of experience guiding meditation, and it's a very impromptu and intuitive kind of process. I don't have a set teaching plan. And as for questions, what I bring is a curiosity about the other person, and I want to learn about them, because I see each person that comes through my digital door as a window into the world, window into their world as well, and they also reflect me back in a new way. So there's always some newness. And there's no expectation of getting anywhere at all. And that can be uncomfortable for some people, but it can also be a great relief as well. And I do have a lot of intellectual maps, let's say. I've done a lot of work mapping out various processes, the processes of the self and integration of the self, and of this form of dialogue, of dialogos, and what that means, what that practice can mean for our culture at this time. But whether that sort of intellectual work becomes relevant to our conversation is unknown to me. It's much more held at the level of how I relate, how I listen, and how I participate with the other person.
Thank you.